The frigid winter wind whistled through the cracked window pane, stirring Bethany Morgan from her fitful sleep as she instinctively pulled her 3-year-old daughter closer to her chest. The abandoned homestead they'd found just before nightfall was barely standing, but it was better than another night under the stars as December's chill settled over the Montana Territory of 1878. Bethany had been traveling for 2 weeks since fleeing Helena, her meager possessions and precious daughter the only things she'd managed to take when she escaped her late husband's brother, and his plans to claim both her and her daughter as his property. Thomas Morgan had made it clear after his brother's passing that a widow with a child needed protection, and he intended to provide it whether she wanted it or not. The bruises on her wrist from his last proposal had only just begun to fade. The blanket she'd wrapped around herself and little Emma was thin, barely keeping out the bitter cold that seeped through the weathered walls of the abandoned cabin. The fireplace stood empty. Bethany had been too exhausted to search for wood when they'd stumbled upon the place just as darkness fell. Now, as Emma shivered against her, Bethany fought back tears. She had promised her daughter safety and warmth, yet here they were, freezing in a broken-down shack miles from anywhere. The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Bethany's heart leap into her throat. Had Thomas found them already? She pulled Emma tighter against her chest, trying to quiet her own ragged breathing as the horse drew nearer. The rickety door had no lock, and the window beside her bed was cracked but not large enough to escape through. They were trapped. The hoofbeats stopped. Boot steps crunched in the snow, approaching the cabin. Bethany closed her eyes, feigning sleep while keeping her body positioned to shield Emma. Perhaps if the intruder thought they were just desperate travelers, he might leave them be. The door creaked open, sending a fresh wave of cold air washing over them. Bethany fought the urge to shiver as heavy footsteps moved across the wooden floor. She could sense someone standing over them, watching. "Madam," a deep voice, gentle despite its roughness, broke the silence. "Madam, are you all right?" Bethany remained still, heart hammering against her ribs. "I know you're awake," the voice continued, softer now. "Your breathing changed when I came in. I mean no harm to you or your little one. This is dangerous country to be sleeping without a fire." Slowly, Bethany opened her eyes. Looming above her was a tall figure, his features shadowed by the brim of a worn cowboy hat. In the dim moonlight filtering through the cracked window, she could make out broad shoulders and a beard-stubbled jaw. "Please," she whispered, "we have nothing worth taking." The man stepped back, giving her space. "I'm not here to take anything, madam. Name's Wade Callahan. I was tracking a stray heifer when I spotted smoke from this chimney earlier today. Came back to check since nobody's lived here for years." "There's no smoke," Bethany said, slowly sitting up while keeping Emma covered. "We haven't had a fire." Wade's expression changed to concern. "No fire in this weather?" He glanced at the small child huddled against Bethany. "That won't do at all." Before Bethany could protest, he turned and walked back to the door. "I'll be right back." Fear gripped her again. Was he leaving to bring others? Should she run? But where would they go in the darkness, with the temperature dropping by the minute? Minutes later, Wade returned with an armload of wood and a saddlebag slung over his shoulder. Without a word, he knelt at the fireplace and began arranging kindling. His movements were efficient, practiced. Soon, a small flame caught, gradually growing until a warm glow filled the room. "There," he said, standing and dusting off his hands. "That'll take the chill off." In the firelight, Bethany could see him clearly for the first time. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps early 30s, with sandy brown hair peeking out from beneath his hat. His face was weathered from the elements, but his blue eyes were kind. "Thank you," she said cautiously, still wary of this stranger's intentions. Wade nodded, then reached into his saddlebag. "Got some jerky and hardtack, not much of a meal, but it's something." He placed the food on a small table near the fire, then added, "Coffee too, if you'd like some." Emma stirred against Bethany, blinking sleepily before her eyes widened at the sight of the stranger. She buried her face against her mother's shoulder. "It's all right, Emma," Bethany soothed, though she wasn't entirely convinced herself. Wade smiled at the child, then turned his attention back to the fire, giving them space. I don't mean to intrude on you and your daughter, madam, but it's mighty cold out there and my camp is a fair piece away. Would you mind if I stayed by the fire tonight? I'll be gone at first light. Bethany hesitated. Having a strange man in the cabin went against every instinct of self-preservation she'd developed. Yet they were alone in the wilderness, the fire was already warming the room, and if he'd wanted to harm them, he'd had ample opportunity. You may stay by the fire, she finally agreed, but we'll be leaving at dawn ourselves. Wade nodded. Fair enough. He settled himself on the floor near the fireplace, removed his hat and placed it beside him. You heading anywhere in particular? West, Bethany answered vaguely. That's a mighty big direction, Wade commented, not pushing for details. There's a town called Riverford about 2 days' ride from here. Got a general store, a doctor, even a schoolhouse now. Bethany nodded but offered no response. The less this man knew about their plans, the better. As the fire's warmth reached them, Emma relaxed her grip on Bethany's dress. Her small face peered out at the cowboy with growing curiosity. When Wade pulled out a small wooden figure from his pocket and began whittling, her interest was piqued entirely. What are you making? Emma asked, her voice tiny but clear. Wade looked up with a gentle smile. Well, I was thinking of making a little horse. Would you like to see when it's done? Emma nodded, still clinging to her mother but clearly fascinated. As Wade worked, the room grew warmer. Bethany felt some of the tension leaving her shoulders. The fire crackled soothingly, and the simple act of watching this stranger create something from nothing had a calming effect she hadn't expected. Are you hungry? Wade asked after a while, gesturing to the food he'd laid out. Bethany's stomach growled in response. They'd rationed the last of their bread that morning, and she'd given most of it to Emma. Yes, she admitted. Thank you. They ate in silence, Emma eventually falling asleep against Bethany's side. Wade finished his whittling and placed the small wooden horse on the table where Emma would see it in the morning. You should get some rest, he said, adding more wood to the fire. I'll keep watch. Bethany wanted to refuse, to stay alert in this stranger's presence, but exhaustion pulled at her. The warmth of the fire and the first real meal in days made it impossible to fight sleep any longer. Thank you, Mr. Callahan, she murmured, settling back onto the thin mattress with Emma. Wade, he corrected gently. Just Wade. As Bethany drifted off, she felt something being laid over her and Emma, Wade's heavy coat, providing an extra layer of warmth against the night's chill. She should have protested, should have remained vigilant, but the simple kindness of the gesture brought tears to her eyes that she was too tired to shed. In the morning, Bethany awoke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, disoriented by actual rest, she thought she was back in her Helena home before everything had fallen apart. Then reality rushed back as Emma stirred beside her. Wade was already up, tending to the fire and brewing coffee in a small pot he must have brought with him. Outside, the first light of dawn was just breaking over the horizon. Morning, he said when he noticed her watching. Hope you don't mind, but I rode out early and brought back some fresh game. Thought you and the little one might appreciate a proper breakfast before you head out. Sure enough, 2 rabbits were already cleaned and spitted, cooking over the flames. Bethany sat up, adjusting her rumpled dress. You didn't have to do that, Wade shrugged. Wasn't any trouble. Weather's clearing up today, should be good for traveling. Emma woke fully then, her eyes immediately finding the wooden horse on the table. She looked to Wade, then to her mother for permission. Go ahead, Bethany said softly. The little girl scrambled off the bed and carefully picked up the carving, her face lighting up with delight. Thank you, mister, Wade smiled, a genuine, warm expression that transformed his rugged features. You're welcome, little lady. Every girl needs a good horse, even if it's a pocket-sized one. As they ate breakfast, Bethany found herself studying their benefactor. In the morning light, she could see that his clothes, while worn, were clean and well kept. His manner was respectful, keeping a proper distance while still being kind. Nothing about him suggested the type of man she was running from. If you're heading to Riverford, Wade said as they finished eating, I could escort you. It's on my way back to my ranch. Bethany tensed. That's very kind, but we'll be fine. Wade looked at her directly, his blue eyes serious. "Madam Bethany," she corrected, surprising herself. "My name is Bethany Morgan," he nodded. "Bethany, then. I don't mean to frighten you, but these parts can be dangerous for a woman and child traveling alone. Not just the elements, but there are outlaws and other troubles a body can run into." "We've managed this far," she replied, though the memory of their nearly frozen night suggested otherwise. Wade seemed to choose his next words carefully. "I understand being cautious around strangers. You're right to be, but I give you my word as a God-fearing man that I mean you no harm. I have a sister about your age in Riverford. If you won't accept my escort, at least take my map and directions to her boarding house. Sarah would gladly give you and your daughter a place to stay until you get your bearings." The mention of a boarding house caught Bethany's attention. She had enough money sewn into her skirts to last a few weeks if she was careful, and finding work would be easier in a town where she might have a safe place to leave Emma. "Your sister runs a boarding house," Wade nodded. "Going on 5 years now. After her husband died in a mining accident, she converted their home. It's respectable she keeps a strict house. No roughnecks or drunks allowed." Bethany considered this. She'd been heading west without a specific destination, just away from Helena and Thomas. A town with a respectable boarding house run by a woman sounded like exactly what they needed. "I'll consider your directions," she finally said, "but we'll travel on our own." Wade accepted this with a nod, though concern still showed in his eyes. "Fair enough, I'll draw you a map before I go." As he sketched out directions on a scrap of paper, Bethany packed their few belongings. Emma clutched her new wooden horse, occasionally glancing at Wade with shy curiosity. "There's a creek that follows most of the way," Wade explained, pointing to his rough map. "Good water, and if you follow it, you're less likely to get lost. There's a trading post about halfway where you can rest if needed." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pouch. "I'd like you to take this, too." Bethany stiffened as he held it out. "I don't need charity, Mr. Callahan." "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's a loan. Pay Sarah back when you get on your feet. There's enough there for a week's board and some supplies." Pride warred with practicality in Bethany's mind. The money she had was limited, and unexpected expenses could deplete it quickly. "A loan," she repeated, taking the pouch with a nod. "I'll repay every cent," Wade smiled. "I know you will." He stood and collected his things, placing his hat firmly on his head. "I'd best be on my way." "Got cattle to tend to." At the door, he turned back. "If you change your mind about that escort, I'll be following the North Ridge for most of the morning. Just give a holler." After Wade left, Bethany stood in the doorway watching him mount his horse, a handsome chestnut gelding that nickered softly as its master settled into the saddle. With a final tip of his hat, the cowboy rode away, his figure gradually diminishing against the vast Montana landscape. "Is the nice man coming back, Mama?" Emma asked, clutching her wooden horse. Bethany sighed, looking down at the map in her hand. "I don't think so, sweetheart, but we're going to visit his sister soon." As they set out an hour later, Bethany couldn't help scanning the northern ridge, wondering if Wade Callahan was still within shouting distance. The weight of responsibility for Emma's safety pressed heavily on her shoulders as they trudged through the snow, following the creek just as Wade had suggested. By midday, the sun had warmed the air slightly, melting the top layer of snow and making their progress slower and wetter. Emma was tiring, her small legs struggling through the slush. Bethany had carried her for stretches, but her own strength was flagging when they heard hoofbeats approaching from behind. Bethany's first instinct was to hide. She pulled Emma off the path, crouching behind a large boulder. "Bethany." "Emma," Wade's familiar voice called out. Relief washed over her, followed immediately by wariness. Why had he followed them? "We're here," she called back, standing with Emma's hand firmly in hers. Wade appeared around the bend, leading his horse. His expression brightened when he saw them, then grew concerned as he took in their bedraggled state. "I was hoping to catch up with you," he said, approaching slowly. "Found some tracks that concern me, riders heading this way from the east. Could be nothing but—" He shrugged, letting the implication hang in the air. "From the east, from Helena." Bethany asked, her voice tight with fear. Wade's eyes narrowed slightly. You expecting trouble from Helena? Bethany hesitated, then nodded. There was no point hiding it if there was a real threat. My brother-in-law, he wants what isn't his to take. Understanding dawned in Wade's eyes, along with something harder, colder than she'd seen in him before. I see. He looked down at Emma, who was leaning against her mother's skirts in exhaustion. The offer to escort you still stands. We could be in Riverford by tomorrow evening if we ride together. Bethany looked at her daughter, then at the vast expanse of wilderness still ahead of them. Pride was one thing, but Emma's safety had to come first. We accept, she said quietly. Thank you. Wade nodded, his expression softening. The little one can ride with me. There's room for your pack too to lighten your load. Within minutes, they had rearranged their travel plans. Emma sat in front of Wade on his horse, giggling as the cowboy showed her how to hold the reins like a real horsewoman. Bethany walked alongside, her step lighter without her pack, and with the knowledge that her daughter was safe for the moment. As they traveled, Wade kept conversation light, telling Emma stories about his ranch and the animals he raised. He had a gift for storytelling that delighted the child and gradually drew Bethany into their exchanges. You have any children, Mr. Callahan? Emma asked with the directness only a 3-year-old could manage. Wade chuckled. No, little one, I don't. Never been married either. But you're old, Emma observed, causing Bethany to gasp. Emma, that's not polite. Wade laughed outright. She's not wrong. 34 is getting up there for a bachelor in these parts. Why aren't you married? Emma persisted, immune to her mother's mortification. Wade considered the question with surprising seriousness. Well, I suppose I never found the right woman who'd want to share life on a ranch. It's not an easy life for a lady. My mama is strong, Emma declared. She can do hard things. Bethany felt her cheeks flush as Wade's eyes met hers over Emma's head. I believe she can, he agreed softly. They made camp that evening in a sheltered grove near the creek. Wade efficiently set up a small tent he'd packed on his horse, insisting Bethany and Emma take it while he slept under the stars. I've got my bedroll and the fire, he assured her when she protested. Been sleeping outdoors most of my life. As they sat around the campfire after a simple but filling supper, Emma fell asleep on Bethany's lap. The child's face was peaceful in slumber, one hand still clutching her wooden horse. She's a special little girl, Wade observed, his voice low so as not to wake her. Reminds me of my sister at that age, full of questions and not a shy bone in her body. Bethany smiled, stroking Emma's hair. She's always been brave, even as a baby. Her smile faded as memories surfaced. Her father died before she was born, logging accident. James never even got to see her. Wade was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry for your loss, thank you, Bethany sighed. We managed well enough until James's brother decided a widow and child needed his particular brand of protection. When I refused his marriage proposal, things became difficult. Wade's jaw tightened. Some men don't understand that no means no. Thomas never understood boundaries, Bethany agreed. When he started suggesting that Emma would make a fine daughter for him, with or without me as her mother, I knew we had to leave. Wade's expression darkened. No wonder you're cautious around strangers. Yes, Bethany looked at him directly, which is why I'm still trying to understand why I trust you, Mr. Callahan. The cowboy met her gaze steadily. I hope it's because I've given you no reason not to. But I understand trust is earned over time, not given in a day. They fell into companionable silence, the crackling fire and night sounds of the wilderness the only backdrop to their thoughts. When Bethany finally carried Emma to the tent, Wade added wood to the fire and settled onto his bedroll. Sleep well, Bethany, he said softly. You're safe tonight. For the first time in weeks, Bethany believed it might be true. The next day's journey went quickly despite the rugged terrain. By mid-afternoon, they crested a hill and Wade pointed to a cluster of buildings nestled in a valley below. Riverford, he announced. Not much to look at compared to Helena, I expect, but it's home to good people. Bethany studied the small frontier town with hope building in her chest. It was indeed modest, a main street lined with wooden buildings, a church steeple rising near the center, scattered homes and farms dotting the outskirts. But to her eyes it looked like possibility. "It's perfect," she murmured. Wade guided them down the hill and into town, nodding greetings to people they passed. It was clear he was well known and respected from the way folks called out to him. "Callahan, back from the North Range already? Hey Wade, that new stallion of yours ready for stud service come spring?" Wade answered each greeting with easy familiarity while steering them toward a large two-story house set back from the main street. A neat sign hung beside the door. "Callahan Boarding House, clean rooms, fair prices." Before they even reached the porch, the door flew open and a woman who could only be Wade's sister rushed out. Sarah Callahan had the same sandy hair and blue eyes as her brother, though her face was rounder and unmarked by the elements. "Wade Callahan, you're 3 days late and I was about to send out a search party," she exclaimed, hands on hips before noticing Bethany and Emma. Her expression immediately softened. "Oh, you've brought guests." Wade dismounted and helped Emma down before assisting Bethany. "Sarah, this is Mrs. Bethany Morgan and her daughter Emma. They're looking for lodging, and I told them there's no better place in Riverford." Sarah's welcoming smile warmed Bethany immediately. "He's right about that, though I might be biased. Come in, come in. You both look exhausted, and it's nearly supper time." The interior of the boarding house was immaculately clean and comfortably furnished. Delicious smells wafted from the kitchen, and the sound of conversation drifted from what appeared to be a dining room. "We have 3 other boarders at present," Sarah explained as she led them upstairs. "2 school teachers and Mr. Peterson, who runs the mercantile, all very respectable." She showed them to a bright corner room with 2 beds, a washstand, and a small table with chairs. "This is our family suite." "It's a bit more than a single room, but Wade mentioned in passing that you'd need space for the little one." Bethany turned to Wade in surprise. "When did you arrange this?" He looked slightly embarrassed. "Sent a message with a passing rider yesterday while you were resting with Emma." Wanted to make sure Sarah had a suitable room ready. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched Bethany deeply. This man had considered their comfort even when there was no guarantee she would accept his help. "Thank you," she said simply, the words inadequate for the gratitude she felt. Sarah tactfully busied herself with showing Emma the view from the window while Bethany composed herself. "Supper's at 6 sharp," Sarah announced. "Nothing fancy, but plenty of it. Wade, you staying?" Wade hesitated, glancing at Bethany. "I should get back to the ranch." Got hands waiting on instructions for tomorrow. Was that disappointment Bethany felt? Surely not. This man had already done more than enough for them. "At least stay for supper," Sarah insisted. "The ranch won't fall apart in the next hour, and you look like you could use a decent meal before riding out again." Wade relented with a smile. "Can't argue with that logic." Supper was indeed plentiful: roast beef, potatoes, fresh bread, and apple pie for dessert. The other boarders were friendly but not intrusive, and Sarah kept conversation flowing easily. Emma charmed everyone by proudly showing off her wooden horse and announcing that Mr. Wade made it special for me. After the meal, while Sarah showed Emma the collection of picture books kept in the parlor, Wade pulled Bethany aside. "I'll be heading out now," he said, "but I wanted to make sure you have everything you need." "We're fine," Bethany assured him. "Better than fine, thanks to you." "I don't know how to repay your kindness," Wade shook his head. "No repayment necessary." He hesitated, then added, "My ranch is about 5 miles west of town. If you need anything at all, send word with Sarah." Bethany nodded, suddenly finding it difficult to say goodbye to this man who had been a stranger just 2 days ago. "Will we see you in town again soon?" "I come in for supplies every Saturday," Wade replied, "and church on Sundays, weather permitting." "Then perhaps we'll see you at church," Bethany said, trying to sound casual. "Emma and I will be there." Wade's smile brightened his entire face. "I'll look forward to it." With a tip of his hat, he was gone, leaving Bethany standing in the doorway of the boarding house watching him walk to his horse. Only when Sarah gently cleared her throat did Bethany realize she'd been staring after him. "My brother has that effect on women," Sarah said with a knowing smile. Though I've never seen him quite so taken with anyone before. Oh no, it's not, Bethany began, flustered. Sarah waved away her protest. Don't worry, I'm not one to meddle, much, she winked. Now let's get you and that precious daughter of yours settled in properly. Over the next few days, Bethany and Emma quickly adjusted to life at the boarding house. Sarah was a fountain of information about Riverford and its inhabitants, helping Bethany identify potential employment opportunities. Mrs. Henderson at the dress shop is looking for someone with sewing skills, Sarah suggested over breakfast their third morning. And I know for a fact that Doc Williams needs someone to help organize his office and assist with patients. That man couldn't find a bandage in a shoebox. By Friday, Bethany had secured a position with Dr. Williams, who was delighted to discover she had experience assisting her father, who had been a physician in St. Louis before his death. The doctor's wife, a kindly older woman, offered to watch Emma during Bethany's working hours. My own children are grown and gone, Mrs. Williams explained. Having a little one around would brighten my days considerably. Life was falling into place with surprising ease, yet Bethany found her thoughts frequently drifting to Wade Callahan. She told herself it was natural to think of someone who had helped them so significantly, but the flutter in her stomach when Sarah mentioned his name suggested something deeper. Sunday arrived clear and cold. Bethany dressed Emma in her best dress, slightly worn but clean and pressed, and put on her own Sunday clothes. As they walked to church with Sarah, Bethany found herself scanning the gathering crowd for a familiar cowboy hat. She spotted him standing outside the church, deep in conversation with the minister. He looked different, clean-shaven, hair neatly combed, wearing a suit that, while not new, fit his broad shoulders perfectly. When he caught sight of them approaching, his face lit up in a way that sent warmth coursing through Bethany. "Good morning, ladies," Wade greeted them, bending down to Emma's level. "Miss Emma, you look very pretty today." Emma beamed. "Mama said we might see you. I brought Maple to show you." She held up the wooden horse, which she had named after its reddish-brown color. "Maple looks well cared for," Wade observed seriously. "You must be a good horse owner." The church service was uplifting, the congregation welcoming to newcomers. Afterward, as people gathered outside to socialize, several townspeople introduced themselves to Bethany. She noticed that many gave knowing looks when they realized she'd arrived with the Callahans. "Wade's quite the catch around here," Sarah whispered, noticing Bethany's confusion. "Half the unmarried women in the county have set their caps for him, but he's never shown interest. Now he shows up in church with a pretty widow and her daughter. Well, people talk. But we didn't arrive with Wade," Bethany protested. "We came with you." Sarah's eyes twinkled. "Details, details." Before Bethany could respond, Wade approached them. "Mrs. Williams was just telling me Emma will be spending time with her while you work at the doctor's office. That's wonderful news." "Yes, everyone has been very kind," Bethany agreed. "The folks here are good people," Wade said. He cleared his throat. "I was wondering if you and Emma might like to join me for Sunday dinner at the hotel restaurant. They serve a fine roast chicken." Bethany hesitated, aware of curious eyes watching them. "That's very kind, but I wouldn't want to impose. It's not an imposition if I'm inviting you," Wade interrupted gently. "Please, it would be my pleasure." Emma tugged at her mother's hand. "Can we go with Mr. Wade, please?" With her daughter's eager face and Wade's hopeful one both turned toward her, Bethany found herself nodding. "We'd be delighted." The hotel restaurant was the finest establishment in Riverford, with white tablecloths and actual glassware instead of tin cups. Emma was on her best behavior, clearly impressed by the surroundings and determined to show Wade how grown-up she could be. As they ate, conversation flowed easily. Wade told them about his ranch, the cattle operation he'd built from scratch after coming west as a young man, the horses he bred and trained, the small but comfortable home he'd constructed with his own hands. "It's lonely sometimes," he admitted, "but the work keeps me busy. And Sarah makes sure I come to town regularly so I don't turn completely wild." "Do you have any family besides Sarah?" Bethany asked. Wade shook his head. Our parents died of influenza when I was 20 and Sarah 16. I raised her after that until she married John. After he died, it was my turn to look after her again, though truthfully, she does more looking after me these days. You're very close, Bethany observed. Family is everything, Wade said simply. His eyes rested on Emma, who was carefully cutting her chicken into tiny pieces just as her mother had shown her. I always thought I'd have a family of my own by now. Funny how life doesn't always go according to plan. There was no self-pity in his tone, just a quiet acceptance that touched Bethany deeply. She understood all too well how life's path could take unexpected turns. Sometimes those unplanned journeys lead us exactly where we need to be, she said softly. Wade's eyes met hers, warm and intent. Yes, they do. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibility, until Emma accidentally knocked over her water glass. The spell broken, they all scrambled to mop up the spill, Wade making Emma giggle by pretending the tablecloth was now swimming upstream. After dinner, Wade walked them back to the boarding house, Emma skipping ahead with Maple the wooden horse galloping through the air. "Thank you for dinner," Bethany said as they approached Sarah's porch. "It was lovely." Wade stopped, turning to face her. "Bethany, I hope you don't think I'm being forward, but I'd like to call on you properly. With your permission, of course." Bethany's heart quickened. "Call on me, court you," Wade clarified, his expression earnest. "I know we've only just met and you have Emma to consider." "I understand if it's too soon after your husband. It's been 4 years since James died," Bethany interrupted softly. "And you've shown nothing but kindness and respect to both Emma and me." Hope brightened Wade's face. "Is that a yes?" Bethany smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that felt foreign after months of fear and worry. "Yes, Wade Callahan, you may call on me." The weeks that followed took on a rhythm that brought increasing joy to Bethany's life. She worked at the doctor's office 4 days a week, her capable assistants quickly making her indispensable to both Dr. Williams and his patients. Emma thrived under Mrs. Williams's grandmotherly care, coming home each day with new stories and small treasures like pretty pebbles or wildflowers. And then there was Wade. True to his word, he courted her properly. He came to town every Wednesday afternoon and Saturday, always bringing small gifts, a ribbon for Emma's hair, fresh honey from his hives, a book of poetry Bethany had mentioned enjoying. On Sundays, they attended church together, then shared dinner afterward, sometimes at the hotel, sometimes at Sarah's table. Their courtship progressed with careful consideration of Emma's feelings. Wade never presumed to take James's place in the child's memory, but he built his own relationship with her, teaching her about horses and nature, answering her endless questions with patience, and treating her with the perfect balance of gentleness and respect. By early spring, when the snow melted and the first wildflowers appeared on the hillsides, Bethany knew she had fallen in love with Wade Callahan. The realization didn't come as a lightning bolt, but as a gradual awareness, like dawn breaking slowly over the mountains. It was in the way her heart lifted when she saw him riding into town, in how she found herself thinking of him during quiet moments at work. In the dreams she now allowed herself to have of a future filled with love and security. On a mild April evening, Wade invited Bethany to walk with him after supper at Sarah's. Emma was already asleep upstairs, tired out from a day of helping Sarah plant her vegetable garden. "Sarah will listen for her," Wade assured Bethany when she hesitated. "I thought you might enjoy seeing the sunset from Miller's Hill. It's not far." The walk was peaceful, the town quiet around them as most folks had already retired to their homes for the evening. Wade offered his arm and Bethany took it, enjoying the solid strength of him beside her. Miller's Hill was a gentle rise just at the edge of town, offering a view of both Riverford and the surrounding countryside. As they reached the top, the setting sun painted the western sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "It's beautiful," Bethany breathed, taking in the vista. "Yes, it is," Wade agreed, though when she turned, she found him looking at her rather than the sunset. Warmth crept into her cheeks under his admiring gaze. "Wade Callahan, you're supposed to be looking at the sunset." "I'm looking at something far more beautiful," he replied simply. He took both her hands in his expression growing serious. Bethany, these past months have been the happiest of my life. Getting to know you and Emma, seeing your strength and kindness, your determination to build a good life for your daughter. I admire everything about you. Bethany's heart began to race as she realized where this conversation was heading. I know it hasn't been long, Wade continued, but sometimes when something is right, you just know it. He took a deep breath. I love you, Bethany Morgan. I love your daughter as if she were my own. I want to spend my life with you both, if you'll have me. Tears welled in Bethany's eyes, not of sadness, but of overwhelming joy. Oh, Wade. I'm not asking for an immediate answer, he hastened to add. I know you need to consider Emma, and Bethany pressed her fingers gently to his lips, stopping his words. Wade, I love you too, so does Emma. You've brought light back into our lives when I thought we'd never find happiness again. Hope blazed in Wade's eyes. Does that mean, yes, Bethany said, her smile radiant through her tears. Yes, I'll marry you. Wade's whoop of joy echoed across the hillside as he swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet in an exuberant embrace. When he set her down, his hands cradled her face with infinite tenderness. May I kiss you, Bethany Morgan? He asked, his voice husky. Please, she whispered. Their first kiss was gentle, reverent, a promise of all that lay ahead for them. When they parted, Bethany felt as though her heart might burst with happiness. There's something else, Wade said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small velvet pouch and emptied its contents into his palm, a gold ring with a modest diamond that caught the last rays of the setting sun. It was my mother's. Sarah's been keeping it for me all these years, waiting for the right woman to wear it. As he slipped the ring onto Bethany's finger, it fit as though it had been made for her. Perfect, he murmured. They walked back to the boarding house hand in hand, making plans for their future. Wade had already been expanding his house, he admitted, adding a proper bedroom for Emma and a larger kitchen because he remembered Bethany saying she loved to bake when she had the space and ingredients. There's a good school just 2 miles from the ranch, he told her. And town is close enough for church and social gatherings. I don't want you to feel isolated out there. His consideration for her needs and Emma's touched Bethany deeply. This was a man who thought of others before himself, who understood that marriage was a partnership. When they shared their news with Sarah, she burst into tears of joy before admitting she'd been planning their wedding since the day Wade brought them to her door. I knew my brother had finally met his match, she declared, hugging Bethany fiercely. Telling Emma the next morning was a moment Bethany would cherish forever. The child's face lit up with pure delight when she understood that Wade would be her new father and they would live on his ranch with real horses, not just wooden ones. Will Maple still be my special horse? She asked Wade solemnly. Wade knelt to her level, as he always did when speaking to her. Maple will always be your special horse, but I thought you might like a real pony of your own too. I have a gentle little mare who just had a foal. By the time you're a bit older, that foal will be ready for a rider. Emma's eyes grew round with wonder. My very own pony. Your very own, Wade confirmed, but ponies are a big responsibility. You'll have to learn how to care for her properly. I will, Emma promised. I'll be the best pony owner ever. The wedding was set for early June, when the wildflowers would be in full bloom and before the busy summer work on the ranch began in earnest. The entire town seemed invested in the preparations. Mrs. Henderson and her seamstresses created a beautiful wedding dress for Bethany and a matching flower girl dress for Emma. The church ladies planned a reception feast, and even gruff old Mr. Peterson from the mercantile donated fine china plates for the occasion. In the midst of the joyful preparations, however, a shadow from the past emerged. 1 week before the wedding, Dr. Williams called Bethany into his office with a grave expression. A man came by asking about you, he said without preamble. Said he was your brother-in-law looking to reconcile with his dear sister-in-law and niece. Ice formed in Bethany's veins. Thomas is here, in Riverford. Not anymore, Dr. Williams said firmly. I didn't like the look of him or his story, told him I'd never heard of you. He tried the general store next, but Peterson sent him packing too. Word spread fast, and by the time he reached the hotel, the desk clerk refused him a room. Relief flooded through Bethany, followed quickly by renewed fear. He'll be back. Thomas doesn't give up easily. That's what Wade said when I sent word to him, the doctor agreed. He rode into town immediately, gathered some of the men, and they escorted your brother-in-law to the county line with a clear message not to return. Bethany sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the community's protection. I should have told everyone the truth from the beginning. You told those who needed to know, Dr. Williams said kindly. Wade made sure the town understood you were under his protection without sharing details that weren't his to tell. That evening, Wade came to the boarding house, his expression tense until he saw Bethany was safe. He gathered her into his arms, holding her close. He won't bother you again, Wade promised. The sheriff's been notified, and I've hired extra hands at the ranch. There will always be someone watching over you and Emma. Bethany looked up at him, love swelling in her heart. You've built a fortress around us. I'll always protect what I love, Wade said simply. But Bethany, I want to be sure this hasn't changed your mind about the wedding. If you need more time, no, Bethany interrupted firmly. Thomas has taken enough from us. He doesn't get to take our happiness too. I want to be your wife now more than ever. The relief on Wade's face was palpable. Thank God, I was afraid you might want to run again. Bethany shook her head. No more running. This is our home now. These are our people. This is where we belong. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, as if even the weather were blessing their union. The small church was filled to capacity with townspeople and ranchers from the surrounding area. Emma took her role as flower girl very seriously, carefully dropping rose petals along the aisle before taking her place beside Sarah at the front. When Bethany entered on Dr. Williams's arm, who had offered to give her away in the absence of any family, the congregation rose. But Bethany saw only Wade, standing tall and handsome at the altar, his eyes filled with such love and promise that her steps quickened, eager to reach him and begin their life together. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged traditional vows, though Wade had added his own promise. I will cherish and protect you and Emma all the days of my life, and I will strive every day to be worthy of the gift of your love. There wasn't a dry eye in the church when Emma was included in the ceremony, Wade kneeling to place a small gold locket around her neck as he promised to be the best father he could be. Can I call you Papa now? Emma asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Wade's voice was thick with emotion as he answered, Nothing would make me prouder, little one. The reception afterward was a joyous community celebration. It seemed everyone in Riverford had contributed something: food, decorations, music. As Bethany and Wade moved among their guests, accepting congratulations and well wishes, Bethany was struck by how completely this town had embraced them in just a few short months. Feeling overwhelmed, Wade asked softly when he noticed her momentary silence. Bethany squeezed his hand. Overwhelmed with gratitude. 6 months ago, Emma and I were alone and afraid. Now look at us surrounded by friends, with a home and a future bright with promise. And a husband who adores you, Wade added, bringing her hand to his lips. That's the best part, Bethany agreed, her eyes shining with happiness. As sunset approached, they said their goodbyes. Sarah would keep Emma for the night while the newlyweds spent their wedding night at Wade's ranch, their ranch now. Tomorrow they would return for Emma, and their life as a family would truly begin. The ranch house was just as Wade had described it, sturdy and well-built, with the recent additions clear in the slightly newer wood of the expanded kitchen and Emma's bedroom. Wade had prepared for their arrival, with fresh flowers on the table and a special wedding gift for Bethany, a beautiful writing desk positioned near the largest window, with a view of the mountains. You mentioned once that you used to write letters and poetry, he explained. I thought you might like a place of your own to return to that. Bethany was touched by his thoughtfulness, by how carefully he listened and remembered the things that mattered to her. It's perfect. Everything is perfect. As night fell, any nervousness Bethany might have felt about their first intimate moments as husband and wife was gently eased by Wade's patience and tenderness. Their love was sealed in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, a sacred joining of two people who had found in each other the missing pieces of their hearts. Afterward, as they lay together in the peaceful stillness, Wade traced gentle patterns on Bethany's bare shoulder. Happy Mrs. Callahan. The new name sent a thrill through her. Happier than I ever dreamed possible, Mr. Callahan. In the morning, they rode together to town to collect Emma, who was bursting with excitement to finally see the ranch and her new home. Her delight in everything from the chickens in the yard to the promised pony in the corral was infectious, and the day was spent exploring every corner of the property together as a family. That night, as Wade built a fire in the hearth to ward off the evening chill, Bethany watched Emma arranging her few dolls and toys in her new bedroom, Maple the wooden horse given pride of place on the windowsill. "What are you thinking?" Wade asked, coming to stand beside her. Bethany leaned against him, fitting perfectly under his arm. "I was thinking about that night in the abandoned cabin, how afraid I was when I heard someone approaching, how I tried to shield Emma and pretend to be asleep." Wade's arm tightened around her. And now I know it was the moment everything changed," Bethany said softly. "When a kind cowboy tucked us in and stayed the night, he wasn't just giving us warmth and shelter, he was giving us a future." Wade turned her to face him, his expression solemn. "That night changed my life too. Finding you and Emma, it was like discovering a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." From Emma's room came a call. "Papa, come see how I arranged everything." Wade smiled, his eyes never leaving Bethany's. "Our daughter calls, our daughter," Bethany repeated, savoring the words. "Our family." As they walked hand in hand to Emma's room, Bethany felt the rightness of it all, this man, this child, this home they were building together. From the broken window of an abandoned cabin to the warmth and security of love's embrace, their journey had been unexpected but perfect in its own way. And as Emma chattered excitedly about her plans for riding her pony and helping with the chickens, as Wade listened with genuine interest to every word, Bethany offered a silent prayer of gratitude for second chances and the courage to accept them when they appeared. That night, Emma insisted on a bedtime story from both her mother and her new father. As they took turns weaving a tale about a brave little girl and her wooden horse who had great adventures, Bethany caught Wade's eye over their daughter's head. The love reflected there mirrored her own, deep, abiding, and filled with promise for all the days to come. When Emma finally drifted off to sleep, they tucked the blankets around her, Wade gently placing Maple within easy reach should she wake in the night. "Sweet dreams, my love," Bethany whispered, pressing a kiss to Emma's forehead. In the hallway, Wade pulled Bethany into his arms. "I never thought I could love this much," he confessed. "It almost hurts, it's so powerful." "I know exactly what you mean," Bethany replied, reaching up to touch his face. "But it's the most wonderful kind of ache." As they retired to their own bedroom, the moon rose over the Montana landscape, casting silver light through the windows of the Callahan Ranch house. Inside, a family slept in peace, a brave woman who had risked everything for her child's safety, a little girl whose world was now filled with security and love, and a cowboy who had found his greatest treasure not in gold or land, but in the hearts of the woman and child he now called his own. And in the years that followed, as their family grew with the addition of 2 sons and another daughter, as the ranch prospered under their combined care, as Emma grew into a confident young woman with her mother's strength and her father's kindness, the story of how they came to be a family was told and retold. The tale of a cold winter night when a desperate mother and her child found shelter in an abandoned cabin, and how a passing cowboy's compassion changed the course of all their lives forever. It became more than just their story, it became the foundation of their family's legacy, a testament to the power of kindness, the strength of a mother's love, and the beautiful unpredictability of a life lived with an open heart.